everyone, it's Skyler.
And it's Tyler.
And welcome to episode 7 of Bird Talk.
So on this episode, we have two guests, Donald Gatz and Jacob Rasmussen. Both are alumni who graduated last year. Donald is a former director of CAD and worked on the ST
My former director of CAD.
And worked on the ST side of the team. And Jacob was also an ST member who was on Fab.
Okay, so hi Donald, hi Jacob. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so let's start with your experience on the team. So when did both of you guys join the team?
I think I'll start just because I started a team my freshman year and Jacob started his junior year, correct? All right, so again, hi, I'm Donald. I joined the team back in 2016. I think that was my freshman year. Yeah, my experience was pretty amazing. As a freshman, like going into robotics, I had no idea what kind of world I was getting myself into. And like I'm really glad I got myself into it because at some point I remember I almost didn't commit as hard and I wasn't going to continue on, but luckily I did, and I did all 4 years throughout high school. I did some director level stuff. I worked quite a bit on both the robot side and some of the IR side at times. And I had a really good experience of a lot of things. Jacob,
I'll take it away. I joined the team 2018 after I moved out here into California from Texas. On Fab, I mostly worked on fitting the pieces together from cut pieces from like the Haas and the router. So I was mostly just building more the mechanical parts of the robot. Yeah, it was a pretty fun 2 years that I was there. Got to go on some pretty cool trips to competitions. Spent a lot of time learning and experiencing what it's like to truly be on a team.
What were some of the things that being on the robotics team taught you?
I guess teamwork. Yeah. Having to communicate back and forth, because even though ST and IR are separate, you really do work in tandem with every single group on the robotics team, constantly trying to make sure, that information is right concerning like how the robot looks and what you're going to talk about if you're asked questions about the robot. It's like...
Yeah, to jump off of Jacob just said, communications was a really big thing I learned through robotics. Also, a lot of leadership and just working in general with people. Like when you're in a more of like the adult world and you start like actually getting jobs and stuff, like it really is very similar to like how like I felt in robotics with some people. Some people you can work well with, some people you don't work well with, but you just have to work through it.
It's kind of like some people you want to work with and some people you have to work with.
Yeah, that's a great explanation for that. And it's just it's a lot of good experience for like a lot of real world situations you'll have in terms of just people. Like I wouldn't even say work, but just people. It's like it gets you really involved with communicating and like working as a team with others. I just think it's really great.
Like all types of different people too on the robotics team,
especially like at competitions too. Like it's not just your team, you have to go talk to everyone else, and I know you did a lot of that too.
Dig a little context to what Tyler just said. During competition my junior and senior and a little bit in my sophomore year, that's when I started, I worked a lot on robot strategy. So I would go to each individual team we'd be working with and talk about like what we'd be doing for that like competition or match or whatever. And like it made me like really have to like put myself out there and talk. So there was a lot of confidence that was built up through the years on that team. And then when I finally got to my senior year, I feel like I was like really adjusted to just having to talk to some random person I don't even know one thing about and to be able to communicate like what I needed.
Donald, for this one specifically for you, what was the toughest thing you ever had to make on CAD?
The toughest thing I had to make, that's kind of a hard one.
Other than like the robot, obviously.
Don't just say robot.
I think the toughest thing
or like one of the things that like you remember still like having to spend a lot of time on and stuff when you did it.
Um, Actually, I think the toughest thing would be like my own projects probably was of kind of the claws on my senior year, like what were supposed to be like the locking jaw claws on the robot. There were supposed to be these two individual claws on each side of the robot that would go up and latch onto the bar on that like swing type deal. I don't remember what it was called. It's been a little bit, but I do remember I had a lot of issues with that. I also remember the extending mechanism for my junior year was really difficult, mostly because I wasn't working alone on that, and there was a lot of like back and forth of like what was going on, what was going wrong. But for the most part, like I would say it was those claws and like the elevator system for my junior year for Into Deep Space. Yeah, that was a game.
And then Jacob, what was one of the toughest things you had to like build or manufacture or like assemble?
Yeah, I think probably the most difficult thing that I have had to assemble was during senior year. It was the actual mechanism that extended the claws that Donald was talking about, because we had to go through so many iterations of GGG in order to actually like find the right rebar that extends the claws at the right rate and whatever. And I'm trying to go through different iterations of like the different pieces of 3D printed parts that were in the mechanism itself. The first like half of building it, some of them weren't the right size, so we had to like fully reprint some like modified versions of those pieces in order to actually get to work, and then trying to actually get the piece of steel rebar into the mechanism and testing it out with the bands and whatever. It was definitely tough, but it was something to keep me busy, something fun to do.
Just this question for both of you. What was your favorite robot to design and build, and over all the years you were on the team? Jacob, I know you weren't on very long, but what are your guys' like favorite robots that we've made?
I can tell my least favorite.
That'll work.
Yeah.
You can tell us both.
Yeah,
I'm willing to bet for both me and Donald, our favorites were probably the deep space one, right? Or is that just me?
I would say that's actually kind of hard. I do have a really big attachment to the Into Deep Space 2019 robot, but I think I also have like a bit of like a lot of connection to like my the 2018 robot for whatchamacallit, Power Up. Yeah, that was it. I don't know exactly why, because like I didn't work on it like super heavily, but I just remember enjoying like that robot a lot and a lot of the design behind that. But I definitely had a lot more like hands-on like experience and like actually working with the robot with the 2019 robot. So I think I'll have to give it a 2019 just for the fact of like how much like experience I had with that robot.
I mean, yeah. Also, good old Woody Flowers. He gave it a nice kiss and said, "This is a perfect piece of machinery."
Oh yeah, should we give context to anyone who's like new, or we're just gonna leave that?
Okay, so at our like
how Tyler's the one who's describing this when
hey, I was there for my birthday, so like it's very memorable for me.
Yeah.
But so there it was a brand new regional, and kind of a thing that happens for brand new regionals is Woody Flowers comes down to them. So it was a
may you rest in peace.
Yeah, may you rest in peace. It was a the Monterey Bay regional, and he gave a whole long speech, very inspirational about how like how much effort everyone put into their robots and stuff. But during his speech, he walked over to our robot and he's like, "This robot is a perfect piece of machinery." And man, that just felt good. Just overall. It's fantastic.
We also he came into our pit later on, and his signature is actually on the robot, and we put a little a piece of Lexan on it, so it's forever like memorialized on it.
Didn't that make us overweight?
I don't
little bit.
I don't remember exactly. There was a lot of weight issues that year. I remember
people were saying that yes, it did. It putting the Lex and everything over it did make us just overweight.
I think it was justified though. Like,
yeah.
Who wouldn't try to preserve that?
It was worth it.
Yeah. I'm definitely glad we had it on there, considering how much wear and tear that robot went through. Like that robot went through a lot.
Mm-hmm. That was a fantastic competition, though.
Yeah, I think
that was
definitely one of my favorite memories.
It's the final countdown.
Man, that also, that was number one, a fantastic birthday present.
That's all it was. It was all a birthday present.
It was all just
for you, buddy.
Yeah, and okay, it's felt like a birthday present,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because
how about it was a nice birthday surprise?
Yeah, it's a surprise for everyone.
Tyler gave all his birthday luck to us that day.
Yeah, that's me
specifically. So, is it the Robo Eagles? The aluminum narwhals. That's who fell. A little context for the listeners. During our final match, one of the big deciding factors is for us winning the regional was one of the robots fell on their climb, so they didn't get points for that, and it just was enough to send us over the limit of points we needed.
It was really an underdog experience.
Yeah, I can give a little context to that story if you want some time to fill.
Well, I think we'll get to that later. I think
we'll get to that in a second. We got some more.
We're ready. We've got all the questions laid out. But okay, so obviously now, so that's your favorite. That's both of your favorite robots. Yeah. Which one was your least favorite, Donald?
Definitely the 2020 robot. That robot had
only issues.
Had
robot.
very, very many issues, which came down to a lot of factors, but it definitely was my least favorite, only because it was I felt like that was one of the robots I feel like there was a lot of confusion on, and a lot of a lot of, I'm trying to find a good word for it.
Ambiguity.
Not necessarily ambiguity. It was a very difficult robot. For what was happening, and I feel like how we got there was also very difficult, and didn't even end up running for a competition, obviously due to what happened with the pandemic. But overall, I don't necessarily hate the robot. That was very much a robot that gave me a lot of difficulty and stress. Jacob, would you agree, or did you have
no, I definitely agree with you. Same reasons, just a lot of confusion concerning building it.
Yeah,
and like I said, with the most challenging thing I've done in Fab was a mechanism for that robot, so it was definitely quite the experience.
Also, it was couldn't actually even use it really, didn't get to see it prosper in any aspect, which sucks, because if you're putting all this effort and time, at least you get to see some type of payoff,
Yeah.
Which and just the pandemic cut it short, which leads us into our next question. How was it finishing your just high school experience with the pandemic?
I first want to give some context about for all my 2021 graduates who are going to be graduating this year, and even the 2022 graduates next year, just considering all everything. You guys definitely have it the worst, I feel. I just want to give some context about you guys got robbed completely. I at least got a little bit of it. So
that's where I remember last year I felt so bad for the seniors, because that was awful. But then I remember this year, and still now I still believe this, that we do have it worse, because at least you guys got most of your senior year. We get none.
Yeah, so I'm definitely just give some context of that, of just like, yeah, I don't want to like make my experience like seem like it was worse than like any of the continuing classes, because I definitely got some of my senior year in like, and I didn't even know what was going on, so there was kind of like that ignorant bliss. But
But it was still rough. So like,
yeah, so
how
you're
was that? I mean,
sorry to reiterate on the question, it was like, how was my high school experience with robotics, or just in general?
it was
Just
just how
either
was
like just both like
how
high
was
school finishing
finishing
in the pandemic and with
Oh,
robotics.
okay.
like
So
overall, like how was finishing last year the way it ended?
Robotics and high
I
school
would
just in general.
say it was a big fever dream. There is a lot of times where I didn't even realize what was going on, because when this all began, it was actually, well, actually how it all actually began was literally the day of our CVR competition,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So the day that California like started shutting down and everything was
And school shut
the
down for
was
good.
March whatever, right? And I was on it was on a Thursday, and on that Thursday we were going to the CVR competition. And I remember waking up bright and early. I had all my gear. I had my strategy board. I had my little fanny pack with all my tools in it. I had extra safety glasses, hair ties, everything I always bring to competition. And then I get a message from my friend. What is his name? Cyrus, my friend Cyrus, who actually was working with CVR at the time. So they were in the CVR. He was in the CVR Slack, and he just texted me, "Hey, CVR is not going to happen. They're shutting it down due to the pandemic." And I was in shock. And this was like at least 5 minutes before the team was informed.
Yeah.
So,
Oh
I
man.
so
It's
I
I,
soul crushing, man.
so I was just, I just stood there. But you were going to say something to Skyler?
Oh, I remember I wasn't on my phone that morning because I like that whole week leading up to it, like I'm sure ST was crazy, but I had to, because I was like a chief for the more so the IR side, like I was focused on business plan and getting chairman stuff done and everything for IR. So like I had been staying up late every night and all. So I woke up like I didn't wake up late, but I woke up somewhat late, so I was just rushing to finish getting myself ready for the competition. And I remember I wasn't on my phone because I was just focused on trying to make sure I had everything for the competition. And then my mom and we drove to school, and I hadn't seen the message at all because I had my phone put away. And then we see Mr. Lake over by the front office. And I'm like, so, we're both like excited, and we walk over to Mr. Lake, and then he's like, "You didn't hear? It's canceled." And I didn't, I was just like, I was also in shock. I just didn't know what to do. It was a very sad day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was, there was a lot going into it that made me disappointed leading up to it, because I was very much like invested in everything, obviously, but I think it was just the shock was just unimaginable, because at the time COVID wasn't being taken as seriously
Yeah, it's
as
more just like, oh, this is kind of just a thing. It'll go away with time. Nobody
yeah.
really took it like this is something that's gonna affect the world for the next like 2 years, basically. Like
Potentially even more.
Yeah, potentially more.
Yeah, it was just wild, because there was so much just shock to it. And I remember I'm very glad for Mr. Lake doing this. He was like, "Hey, like, you don't, if you don't want to go to school today, don't go to school today," which I was very glad at the time, because like I remember I was just mentally just like so shocked and just didn't know what to do. And funny enough, I remember actually going to see my friend from San Jose. Her name's Katie. She was on a team named Dark Matter, and I was very close friends with her and like some of her teammates. And I was like, "Yo, did you hear what happened?" She said, "Yeah." And we're just going back and forth, and I was like really sad. I was like, you know what, if I'm not going to be able to see like competition at all, I might as well see you and the team. So I actually that day drove out to Madeira, to Black Bear Diner, and I had breakfast with them And like at the time we were all kind of joking and being pretty lighthearted about it, and like we had no idea what was to come. I actually have this distinct memory of one of their teacher advisors saying like, oh, you guys aren't probably going to go in school on Monday, and like everyone being like pretty excited, be like, oh, that's cool, like no school, right? And little did we know that would turn into
No
like
school for the rest of the year. And
yeah. So and then like continuing months, right? We go into quarantine, school online. I think everyone knows where the story goes with just
yeah.
a little bit of a really rough time just being inside and all, and like how that goes. But I do want to say that, like, you know, it's very unfortunate how it is, and I can't imagine, but I am very thankful that I did get some time in my senior year. But definitely the feeling, and I hope you guys at least get some sort of like a graduation. Like, I don't know how that's going to work for you guys, but it's
a bunch of stuff for us. It's just how much of it's going to actually play out.
Yeah, but it's just definitely it's very daunting when you actually have the knowledge of it. But I feel like a lot of the class of 2020 had the same feeling of, oh, okay, because it was just so much at once that like you couldn't process it, and then when you actually like processed it, it was already over, and you kind of just had to accept it and move on. But
I feel really bad for like the other people in my freshman class, because it's a terrible way to start off high school, just sitting in front of a computer for hours a day. Like, yeah, that's not what high school is, you know.
There's I've taught my family is we have many teachers in it, and I've had conversations about like what this does for, like, you know, like someone in elementary school or in kindergarten or in high school or college. I think the people who would have this the easiest in terms of like is still in school is someone in college, because that's a not too bad of a transition.
Yeah, because taking classes online, like you could do that normally. Anyways.
But I definitely think that like it affects everyone, like like no matter what, especially people going fresh in it. And I know when I went into college, like online, that was definitely a big struggle, considering that like I had to make sure like I was aware of everything from online and not just someone telling me anymore, right? Because I like there was no person to person interaction anymore. So but your original question was just high school experience, correct?
Yeah, just like all of it in general, like from the pandemic.
I mean, if you guys want to talk about how it's been like for college.
Yeah, feel free.
I mean, it's just the same thing as like taking online classes in high school. The routine of it is just tedious, and it's led me, it's tedious, repetitive. It's led me to actually take an academic leave for the next year, because I just can't handle it.
I actually took academic leave as well. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I will be returning in fall 2021. Hopefully, if things start working out more. I do really want to keep pursuing my education, but for now I just started doing work again, and just like trying to like figure out where things go from there. Like I will say this for like you two and just anyone listening that's still in high school and not like, you know, out and about, that like once you get out of high school, things start becoming a lot more gray, and not so like black and white and very like cookie cutter standard, like what you're going to do.
Yeah, high school is not it's not like preparing you for what's to come.
Yeah, I will say that like I'm 20 years old now, like and like I think one thing that pandemics really taught me is that it's a lot you have to adapt to and figure out, and also like for yourself, and to really like know what you need and want, and then like go and pursue that. But it's overall just a really rough experience with with everything, obviously, for everyone. And I feel like everyone takes it a different way.
It's definitely different for everyone.
Yeah. But I on a more positive note in terms of all of us, I will say that it's very unfortunate, but I'm very glad that at least I'm able to continue on and like keep doing what I'm doing, and like have the ability to figure all that out. As I'm really supporting people in my life, and like some really great resources from just people, and like keeping me in there.
The relationships made, or like, I feel like over like COVID, because there's so much has happened. Like, I didn't even realize it now, but some of my friends that I'm like really close to, I would have never made if not for the pandemic. It's like there's so many terrible aspects of this, but like some things, it's just they would have never happened. Like, I've made some new friends that I would have probably never talked to. And
for me, I know this, most people I know have like, lots of people have kind of lost motivation and all during this pandemic. But like for me, this has been, because like from my high school experience, last year specifically was insanely stressful for me because I took super hard classes and just had a lot of responsibility for robotics, and it was very overwhelming and hard to keep up with everything. And I was like never home, because so like I missed out on a lot of stuff with family and everything. Like I didn't, like I missed weddings and stuff, and like so it was kind of, it was not very enjoyable. I mean, robotics was enjoyable, but it was a very stressful year.
yeah,
And like
also
this
I
year,
remember, weren't you telling me like for some of the things at school, like there were just things during lunch, like drama hosted something and you missed out on that because you had to do like
yeah,
other things?
I didn't really have time to go to like improv shows that my friends were in and that I always enjoyed, and like just little fun things I never really got to go to because I was always so busy. And obviously I can't go to improv shows and stuff this year because of the pandemic, but I do get to spend time with my family, and it's been like my schedule is also a lot less busy this year, which is super nice. And so it's like, I, as much as like I miss everything and I'd rather be in school and not have to worry about the pandemic and stuff, I will say this year has been very good for me to be able to like get back on top of things and like kind of work on like spend more time with my family and things again. So there has been some good things that I think have come out of this.
Like a big thing, like when you like leave high school, and I knew this would happen, but like it like when it actually happens, it's quite real. Especially during the pandemic, is you don't talk to as many people anymore as like you normally would. And like for some that actually might not be that bad, but for me, like I'm a pretty social person, like
Yeah, same here.
and I've actually turned myself into a social person through actually robotics and like other like clubs I did. And when I actually was like not able to do that anymore, it was a big strain. But I did definitely like start having closer relationships with people that I wouldn't normally have a relationship as close as I did now due to pandemic, because those were the people that were online and people that actually caught up and kept up with me. And there's a lot of people I realized that I wouldn't be talking to anymore because of the pandemic. And like I would never just receive them. Like you might, like I've had a couple of awkward like, oh hey like at a Target or at Walgreens, right? Or maybe like someone comments on like a post I made on Instagram or Snapchat every once in a while. But other than that, like I never see those people or talk or interact with them. So it's yeah, like so there's a lot of COVID that like um I'd say that like is bad, and I think the majority like it is undeniably like unfortunate.
Mhm.
But I definitely see that like there is some silver linings to there that you could see definitely in terms of definitely people and like how they like reacted to it.
Yeah, it's like through this, so much like has changed. Like I think about it, like relationships have formed and like fallen out. Like, dude, so many of my friends that I was super close with, they just got like super they basically just walled themselves off from everything. And
I remember I was trying to reach out to a lot of my friends. I haven't been doing as good about it recently, but like a few months ago, or really it would have been quite a few months ago now. It was like summertime. But I remember I was reaching out to some of my friends who like I didn't really talk to too much last year. I would visit occasionally, but like because I was just busy again with robotics, I didn't really get to see these friends that much because they weren't in robotics. But I like would still text them and stuff. But so I was like reaching out to all my friends and stuff. And I remember one of my friends, I was like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, how are you? Like, how are you doing?" And I remember she just was like, "Yeah, I haven't talked to anyone recently." And then that was it. And like she basically was like, "I'm not gonna talk to you. I don't want to talk to anyone right now." Just not like a mean way, just basically she's just like you were saying, she's kind of just walled herself off and secluded like herself. And it's just like, I mean, I don't know how, if this pandemic was happening in any other time period, like if we didn't have phones and all these different ways to communicate with people, I would be dying. But because we have so many different ways to communicate with people and all, it hasn't been too terrible for me.
The internet, social media, texting, calling, I feel like that has definitely saved a lot of people, especially jobs, like, and just people's mental health is like really spared them a lot. I know that like other than actual health with like the pandemic, right, that people's like mental state are probably like the most like at risk currently, just in general, like I personally definitely went through it when like it all started, because you're never really prepared to go out on your own and start being an adult, air quotes.
Yeah,
But
because
when
nothing
you're
really truly prepares you for that except experience. Like
yeah,
that's the true way to learn.
but when you're definitely when like even like just a normal standard, you graduate, you do all these fun things, you then you go to college and like you start like or whatever have you, right? You just continue it when that mold is broken and you're kind of free flowing in this new world of pandemic, being stuck at home, all this and such. You definitely are given this challenge of what like of adapting to that and like how you adapt. I will say that I definitely didn't do the best in terms of of reacting and adapting to some situations, but I also don't try to like put too much of a strain on myself because of it, because at first I definitely like I took it pretty hard, but because you see other people doing whatever, or like you kind of have that mentality of, oh, the grass is always greener on the other side of the hill.
Like
But
also like with a lot of stuff in the media where it's just like, oh, we're all in this together, it's fine, like so much promotion was being done like it's okay, but it wasn't for a good amount of people.
yeah,
Like
I definitely think this was one of the most terrible times for like people, because it's the interesting thing I do find about COVID is that it's not dangerous enough to warrant some people being truly like deathly afraid of just even going outside, but it's still like heavy enough to where like it affects your life in a large way.
And like I know because I have like health people in my family, and so I know for us, like we think about it, like for me specifically as a teenager, I'm supposedly at a lower risk, yeah, but it's like obviously I could probably go out, and even if I did get it, I'd probably be fine, probably at being but at the same time it is a risk, and it's just whether or not you're willing to take that risk, and that risk changes depending on the age and all of the person. And
more about
that's where, like,
spreading.
for me and my
Yeah,
family, we don't really find it, like, I don't find it worth the risk. And I've already got it once. Not even, I've been staying home all the time, and I already got it at one point, and I didn't have it bad, but I know I wouldn't want it again. Like,
I definitely agree with Tyler and like you also that it's definitely got risk, like risk that like you have to be willing to take I guess. But for me, I'm pretty healthy. Like I think if I were to actually get it, it wouldn't actually affect me that hard, especially because
I
like I
mean,
don't have breathing. But
I'm
it's
healthy.
spreading.
I'm
But it's
healthy, and it didn't really affect me. I only had really one symptom, well, two technically, and that was loss of taste and loss of smell.
Both.
Slightly the smell, mostly the taste, but I didn't really notice the smell until like I actually was paying attention to whether or not I was smelling stuff as strongly, and I wasn't. But the taste gone, and everything tasted, I kid you not, like peas. And I don't dislike peas, but when bacon bits taste like peas,
Hey, you never
I'm
even have
mad.
peas again.
I am upset, okay? Like my bacon bits and my blueberry bagels with cream cheese on them should not taste like disgusting, not even good peas, just like disgusting,
Like
gross,
frozen peas.
like
Yeah.
having no taste is the worst taste you could ever have, and it was awful. And it was really the worst part was the isolation, because after you get the symptoms, you have to isolate for like what 10-14 days. And
Yeah.
I mean, we ended up doing like 14 days rather than 10, just but like my dad got it, and that's how I got it, because I wasn't leaving my home, but my dad got it, and like he got it bad enough to where he didn't have to go to a hospital or anything, but he was sick for like, he had a cough from it for like months. He only just finally, like, it only just went away like a month or two ago, and he got it months and months ago. And that's where it's just it was rough on him. And that's the other thing. You can have it and not have it bad, but you could give it to family members and stuff, and they might be worse off than you. So
Yeah, it's definitely spreading that like gets me. Because if I got it, I don't think it would affect me personally, like as in like my individual health. But in terms of spreading it, I just never want it to like continue to spreading and increase the numbers, because like it just keeps on escalating and escalating. And like I do feel as if like if that was like taken care of early on, I feel like I don't think we would be in a bad of a situation. But also,
I would like to point out that it also, another downside is, even if you barely get any symptoms and stuff, if you were to get it, it has some really strange side effects and just like weirdness. Like in symptoms, again, the loss of taste and smell is just odd. And it's just, yeah, it's very strange. But okay, as much as this conversation has been quite educational about talking about these different things,
Yeah, I think we should move on. Yeah.
yeah, but so we're gonna, man, okay, Tyler, do you think we have time to talk about their favorite competitions?
Yeah, I mean, our lake episode was an hour long, so
Yeah, okay, but so as much as this has been like, it was good talking about that. Okay, moving on.
yeah, you guys can always cut and put whatever you guys want. I don't like. I think me and Jacob are pretty open to answering any questions you guys have.
Okay, but
right,
so
yeah, Jacob, let's
obviously
continue talking again. You haven't talked for the past like 15 minutes.
okay,
a little bit.
just let me transition, guys. I got this.
All right.
So this obviously the pandemic and everything is a very heavy topic, but on a bit of a lighter note, let's talk about your team experiences again. But like, so we kind of, you almost started going into it earlier, Donald, but like, what are like your guys's Jacob and Donald, your guys's favorite competitions that you went to?
Yeah.
Like your favorite one, if you had to pick one.
Yeah, I would like to say that my favorite competition, it's not the one where in Monterey where we like won. I would have to say it's the first off season that I went to. Blocko, Madtown was kind of interesting. But I don't think it was my favorite. I have to say it was my first off season competition in capital cities where I got to be introduced to the concept of FRC. And it's like physically, like I can see it format, I guess. Like I've seen all the teams and all the different robots and all the different designs and all the different buttons. Love to click the buttons. Was definitely pretty exciting for me.
Yeah.
Skyler, sorry.
No. I was just your first competition is always the best. Like it's not to say the best, but it's always one that you remember.
I was going to say that it's actually seeing what you do on a robotics team at a competition is definitely like, I feel like, where like that's the point of whether or not you get hooked or not onto robotics. Because it's really kind of like a weird place when you join a robotics team, because because with other competitions and stuff, I feel as if you could see the scale of what that competition entails initially when you actually join, for the most part. I would say that like a lot of academic teams, that's not necessarily always the case, because if you were to do something like football or volleyball or soccer or whatever have you, you get the scope of it pretty quickly, of what you're gonna like really be getting yourself into.
Mhm.
But robotics, you join like a summer or beginning of the school year, you start learning about robots and like all this electronics, CAD, whatever have you. And you're kind of just like, as a freshman especially, or like a new member, you're doing a lot of busy work, and you're just learning your skills and stuff. So you don't land I understand where like a lot of like new people come from, where it's like, oh, I'm not doing anything important. Like, what's the point of all this? But when you get to competition, you really see like what you're working towards, and like what it's all about, because it's a really big like opening experience going to like your first competition. You see all these teams, all these people, like all these different types of robots, like everyone has different colored shirts, and like all these different buttons and all this stuff.
Yeah, every
So
experience is like a new one.
yeah, so it's really big. um I know I like when I first did my first competition, right? It was an off-season competition at gosh, I want to see, it was Capital Cities, or it was Capital Cities or one of like the other off seasons. No, it wasn't Chesney Champs, because I remember I didn't go to Chesney Champs my freshman year, and I always regretted that. I think it was Capital Cities. So my one of my favorite competitions was my first one, and Monterey. But for my freshman year, I remember going on the bus and like really early in the morning and being like really tired, and kind of just like doing that like usual, like, oh, I'm like just sleep for the first bit, talk to everyone like on the second bit, right? And like I still was kind of like wary of like, oh, what's gonna happen. I never seen like a full field or like how competition goes. And when I finally got there, like it really clicked on me, and like, oh, this is why everyone says it's so fun. This is why everyone like joins like robotics and like really gets to experience all that, is because of these competitions. And that was really like eye-opening for me, especially as a freshman, because you get a lot of freedom, and like I like and like you still have to like help at the competition, like obviously with scouting or other like kind of more like busy work tasks, because like you don't necessarily have a role yet. But I definitely like remember like it was one of the funnest experience I ever had, because I didn't have any like roles to fill. I didn't have anything to worry about. I was just a member on the team, like running around and being dumb. And
I
yeah,
remember my first competition was, I remember it was exciting. It kind of reminded me of cheer competitions, except better. Because it was less stressful for one thing, because I didn't have to do anything, you know, because it was all the drivers, and I was just got to sit back and relax and hope everything went well. But like, I mean, for competitions are definitely, I think, a big part of why people stay. It definitely wasn't why I stayed. I think, Donald, you're part of the reason I stayed, because you were very welcoming, and I was new to this whole robotics thing, and you like basically made me like your apprentice for CAD, and it made things a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable,
yeah.
kind of having like somebody who made sure that I had stuff to do and whatnot. So
Well, I'm glad you felt that way. I really try with new members, like to like make them feel like welcomed. I know like from stories I've heard, like I don't like I can sometimes come off as a little scary or abrasive, which I didn't know about for the longest time.
I don't
Really?
see it.
I mean, Sayabel, like, definitely would say that.
I'm not a very good example because I don't really get intimidated by people.
I've just heard that, and but yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I was just gonna say that, like, but yeah, that was like really a big competition for me because that's where I met a lot of the seniors and juniors, and like I made a lot of friends through the team. That's where like you make a lot of bonds through competitions because like you have to room with people, and like you have to be stuck with people for a really long time, and like actually, and not just at the shop, right? This is it's very involuntary of like where the places you're at. So it was really fun. I also remember.
I remember it wasn't my first, because my first competition wasn't an away competition because I only got to go to one competition my freshman year because of cheer. I was always busy at all the other competitions. But so the only one I went to was the one that was in town. But like, I remember when I did go to, or like in town is in, in town, right? Yeah, Fresno.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but basically, I remember my first out of town competition though was like that one was eye opening. That one I had already decided I was going to be on the team, but that was where I really was like, I'm staying on the team. Okay. Now, speaking of competitions, Jacob, would you like to talk about Blocko? Because and like explain, I mean, I think we've mentioned it in the past podcasts, but in case you are
very
not
briefly.
a frequent and not reliable, but
sort of reliable.
Like reader or not reader, listener.
Yeah.
My bad. But basically, in case you didn't know, Blocko is the name of our Jacob can explain.
Yeah, so Blocko was this concept designed by Michael, who is the current CTO right now.
Yes, Michael is our current chief technical officer.
Yeah, and this was during his junior year. Was it during the off season of 2020, right, or 2019? I can't remember. It was it was a robot designed by Michael to help give new members some experience in building a robot and designing a robot, because a lot of newer members were, I think, missing out on designing and building a robot since it was off season and not much was going on.
Yeah, I think we wanted to, because new members don't generally, especially on the robot side of the team, the ST side, they don't generally get a lot of responsibility. And we've been trying to change that every year. And that year, I remember we were trying to help them take more responsibility and just prepare them more for on season. So yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and it was a team assembled basically of myself, Bobby, who is one of our mentors.
Love Bobby. Woohoo.
Bobby is awesome. Josh, Baker, and Van Doren as drivers, and Michael being, I guess, the head fabricator of the robot.
The face of Blocko, the face behind it, the dreamer behind the reality.
Yeah, and it was a robot we used for the off season of Madtown, which I think was 2019, and it was just another bot to help practice and train new arrivals to the team.
How was it being human player?
Sort of boring since I was mostly in the center, not doing too much. Yeah, I mostly just stood there and tried to help out where I could, hand out any field elements to the people who were on the sides of our team. But yeah, it was mostly just me standing there.
Okay, now like we talked a lot about like different favorite memories. I'm sure you guys have other like favorite memories and stuff that you guys could talk about. But like, if you had to pick one single memory that is one that is funnier than all the others, like a funniest memory, what would it be?
I think for me, my first day walking in, right? So you see a blonde dude walk in with a tank top.
Oh my gosh, I remember this.
Yes. And so I walk in, right? It's my first day, and having met Ben, who was a one on the CAD team the first year I joined. And so I walk into the fab room, and I noticed Ricky, who was a senior during my junior year on the team. he walks over with a little dowel rod, a little wooden stick, and he's poking my biceps. He's like, "Damn, this dude's got some muscle." And so that, along with Princess carried by Donald and Princess carrying Josh Van Doren, were some of the funniest memories, I think, and just on the first day too. So it was definitely, I could definitely see where my tenure on the team was going.
Yeah, I have a very distinct memory of that because I'm not gonna lie, Jacob, I totally thought you were lost.
Oh yeah.
You look so out of place in robotics, dude.
At the time, like
Yeah,
I think everyone I've talked to who was there that day or just met Jacob in general, right, had said this exact same thing that, oh, sorry, dude, it's just like we thought you weren't actually looking for robotics.
Yeah.
I thought
like,
you were
wait a minute,
like,
this guy looks like he
visiting.
talks to people.
I thought you were just visiting for whatever reason, because I was like, he can't be on robotics. Because I remember like the first time I think I saw you was like in the shop or something, or like the first time I actually like had an interaction of any sort with you was like in the shop, and I remember I was like, this guy's in a tank top and shorts. And just looking at him like he can't. No, he must just like be visiting or something, or. I'm like, this isn't real, is it? Is he actually joining the team?
Yeah.
It just bounces off you.
Yeah,
Praise.
Yeah. At the time, I definitely remember thinking Jacob was like some student, Mr. like looking for tutoring or like picking up someone's younger like sibling.
So much like you just did not look like a nerd. You just didn't fit the mind, our stereotype that we have for nerdy members of our team.
Yeah, that's actually honestly like our stereotype for our team specifically. I've noticed is like, not to diss on any other FRC team, but like because of how Buchanan works, and like I feel like if you're in Clovis Unified, you play a sport on one point or another, right? Like a lot of people like would.
I played sports for us.
Yeah, a lot of people would play sports and then they would get to high school or whatever, and they would like move on to like academic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like I kind of feel like that kind of leads to like more of like either semi-athletic or athletic people like joining more often than not.
Oh yeah.
Because we had
it was more the tank top and the shorts and like the flip-flops that like threw me. I was like, he's in the shop with, because I'm like a rule follower and everything. So I was like, this guy just doesn't.
That was like the first day or whatever. That wasn't.
Oh, I know. That's why. No, I mean, I'm very glad you joined. Like we're all glad you joined. It's more just like, I just remember the first day that was like I was like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Dude, I don't think I've ever seen you like not wearing a tank top.
It happens occasionally when it's
very
like
rarely.
I saw you in a sweater, but then you took off the sweater and you were wearing a tank top. So
yeah. Well, you gotta always be prepared.
Maybe I've seen you in a team polo, like once, maybe.
No, more than once. Every single
maybe
competition.
A few times, but like, yeah.
My favorite memory, correct?
Your funniest.
Oh, funniest.
Favorite. Yeah. I'm sure that.
Yeah. I meant favorite.
Funniest.
I have a couple small ones. I actually have one involving Tyler Peterson's brother, Aaron Peterson. Me and Aaron are actually pretty good friends, and we joined at the same year. So Aaron and I, our freshman year, we were working on a part, and they were trying to press down this one piece in with the 10-ton press, right? So there was like 3 like seniors like holding on to this lever, trying to just like push down this one part into another, and they could not for the life of them actually like pull it down. And Aaron, who's like, it was 6'2" at the time, like really big dude, just comes over there and grabs the bar and just like lifts his feet up like he's just hanging from it, and you just see the bar bend, and like everyone was just like, wait, what happened? And because the part didn't move, but they moved, and they saw the bar and the bar in a shop. Like by the way, this was like made out of like iron. Like this thing was really solid. Like there no amount of normal force could like actually like bend this thing. And
I
like,
remember
with all of them on there.
I wasn't there, but I remember I saw the bar after, and you guys were describing it to me, and I'm like, is that even? It still doesn't seem like that should have happened.
Yeah,
it still doesn't make sense.
The vibranium bar, and he bent it.
Yeah, I remember that was really funny to me. But I think the funniest memory of me, there's a lot of like little things in the shop. Like I remember like just laughing. But I think one of the ones was one of the late nights, and we were working like really hard trying to get the parts out. This was my junior year, and we have a router that was custom made, or Shahe made, as I would like to call it, because definitely not custom, and it's a very very little janky router that like the team made, and one of our mentors was actually involved, Shahe.
I think he was like the main person behind it.
Him and Patrick were the ones who created it, and but this thing isn't like anything professionally made, and like it was connected to this one outlet, and it was super cold, and we and due to safety we have to keep the shop open during when we're machining parts with the coolant on any of the machines, because it's toxic if it's like in a open room. So so it was late at night, it was very cold. I remember it being like 20 degrees or something like that. Everyone's like bundled up and like hugging heaters, and I was having to work the router for a little bit, so I plug in the heater into the outlet, but it blows out the outlet. And in reality, it actually just broke the breaker on it. So like you just had to like reset the outlet itself, right? But we thought I broke the whole shop. Like I just destroyed like one of the outlets in the shop, and that we would have to like reset the breaker like on the outside. And so after like 15 minutes of scrounging around in extension cords, we finally get the router back up. But during all of that, it was just a cycle of insanity, because all of us were super tired, and we were just saying like random things and doing random stuff. Like I remember I remember we had Jesus take the wheel on a repeat as a joke. And like Shahe, actually I have another memory too, but I'll get to that later. But basically Shahe was just going insane, and like when he was trying to fix some of the parts, right, Shahe's just hunched over this little black box putting in wires, and you just see Shahe being like, 1 spaghetti needle, 2 spaghetti needle, 3 spaghetti needle, going insane. Like this, like Shahe has had enough. He's tired. He's been at the shop forever, like helping us like idiots. And like I just remember that night, I was just constantly laughing of just the stuff we were doing to Shahe, and like the shenanigans we got into through our like just being tired. Like there was like many times like we would just do something dumb because it was just keeping us just a little sane from like working like for life out long.
So then you guys talked about your funniest memory just overall, and then like is there only one, like you have to pick one, but like funniest memory about, I mean other than the one you kind of were just saying, Donald, of like a coach or mentor specifically?
Actually, that actually works out quite well, but I do want to give the floor to Jacob because I've been talking for quite a long time.
I don't really have anything that's like super funny. I just remember walking the shop one day though, and I just see Pasquale wearing these giant like black slinky tubes on his arms and just flailing them around. I think that was about it.
Pasquale, you never really know what he's gonna do.
Yeah, he could high five you or yell at you.
True. Very true. I definitely feel like I've driven like a lot of like mentors insane of some of the shenanigans I've done. I think the only mentor I feel like I didn't make mad or like, irritate was Bobby. At least I think.
I don't think I've ever seen Bobby. I don't think I've ever seen Bobby get mad.
Yeah, I
he has, but I've never seen it.
I've never seen Bobby surprised. Those are the funny ones. Bobby's best. But my favorite mentor funny
once or twice, but yeah.
But my favorite mentor funny moment I definitely has to be Fortunate Son and Shahe. So if for anyone who is in robotics like 2019 to in 2019 to 2020-ish, there was a point where we would play a lot of music in the shop. But like of course like we had to keep it PG and everything, and like, you know, like have stuff that everyone could like enjoy enough to where like it wouldn't get annoying. But we one day asked Shai, hey, what song do you like, or what music do you like? And he's like, just play Fortunate Son. Like I like that song, like just play it. And we were just there playing it. And I don't know who got the idea of it. I don't know how it all started, but someone was like, hey, how about we just keep on playing Fortunate Son? Because that's the only thing Shahe has ever said he likes. And so this started the long line of us playing Fortunate Son at every moment possible.
And Slackbot even got involved because we use Slack for our communication. It's an app, like we use it to communicate for robotics, for those of you listening. And like, so there's certain things that like if you say or like send certain messages, like a little like pre-programmed like Slackbot thing is what it's called. It will, well, not the thing, but Slackbot will come on and it'll like say a message or something. And so there's certain, like, I don't know how it works exactly, but like basically Mr. Neighbors, our like head coach, he made it so that whenever, like, I think it was if he said certain lines or something of Fortunate Son, like Slackbot would respond with like the next lines or whatnot.
Yeah, it basically worked as like a sensor too, or like it inform a mentor or something, like something mischievous happened, or just an inside joke on the team.
Yep.
But with the Shahe thing, it was torture for Shahe. I remember I had a speaker I brought into the shop or a competition with me, and I would just like randomly just walk by Shahe like our competition, because Shahe would work at the competition like with other like, you know, volunteers, right? And he'd be like one of the head volunteers. And I would just walk by and just playing Fortunate Son, and Shahe would just would just get mad at me or like freak out, and like it was really funny because it got like we evolved so many people on our team and other teams, and like a staff trying to get Shahe to listen to that, and Shahe hates that song now, because we played it over and over and over. Like I think we had like a record of one time just playing Fortunate Son for a good like 5 hours on repeat in a shop, just trying to torture Shahe. And the funny thing is, like, I'm surprised like Shahe never like put a full stop to it, which was always the funny thing too. But we definitely like, that was definitely a very funny memory.
He gets annoyed, but he enjoys it, I think, you know.
Cool. Okay, if you guys could describe your whole robotics experience in one word, just what would it be?
One word.
Tyler.
One word.
Exciting.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
experience.
That's also a good one.
Mm-hmm. And
those, yeah.
Yeah, I can see how for both of those you kind of got into it.
And then I think we got it's kind of obvious why those are both pretty self-explanatory. And then our last question for you guys, and this one is brought to you by our very own CEO, Anika. She came up with this, and so this one is for her. But if you guys were like if you guys had to be in an IR subgroup, so on our business side rather than our ST side, what subgroup would you have been in?
Graphic design, if it's still a thing.
It is, yes.
Yeah,
well, there we go.
I was about to say I worked in IR, so that kind of
Donald, but like you were more focused on ST. So
well, this
pick
was
one. Well, what would be the one IR subgroup?
I definitely enjoyed media because I did work in that for quite a while.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I still did, and like in the later years, I just like it was more in the background. So yeah, definitely media.
Well, this has been quite the educational talk. It's been quite a good talk. It's been Very interesting. Man, we talked about everything from like social, like outside of team stuff to team stuff to
it all fell under like mainly just the school and the team.
Oh, and yeah, no, it's been a good conversation.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem, anytime.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
So then you guys can stay on if you want, or I know Jacob, you need to go eat and make dinner.
Yeah.
Sorry this took so long. So now moving on to the sponsor shout out. So this week we are giving a shout out to our sponsor. They've been sponsoring us for several years now. They're at Leyland Farms. So they're sponsoring us because of we have a contact with them through one of our mentors who we mentioned earlier, Bobby, who is amazing. And so we have him to thank for this sponsorship. But Leyland Farms, they're a business in the Central Valley. They work with goats. And if anyone, so thank you, Leyland Farms. And if you know anyone who would like to sponsor us, or if you would like to sponsor us, then you can go to our website, or you can contact us at contact@team1671.com for more information and to figure that out. And our website, I believe, is team1671.com. If you type that, it should pop up. And then moving on to the Nest News portion of the podcast.
Okay, so the next booster meeting is on March 18th from 6:30 to 7:30. If you want to be joining that, you can contact Jennifer Peterson on Slack, Noah Menz, and and also I'm sorry to say it, but Daphne is now out of masks. So if you did not get an opportunity to get one, it's a bummer. But
I think the plan is to make more. I think she's gonna make more, and I think that she's gonna do a new design. She's gonna try a different mask out. So if you have one, and because they were kind of big, these last ones, so I think she's gonna try a new mask, like a new type of mask that is supposed to be better fit and everything. And we'll update you with more information if that ends up coming into being or not. And then so exciting. This is exciting. So IR chairmans, surprising, except this time we got exciting news, guys, because we finally we uploaded and submitted the Chairman's Award executive summaries and essay. Woohoo, yay, that's exciting. We're still working on documentation, so our digital binder, that is still in, we're still finishing that up, and the chairman's presentation obviously is still in the works, but we finished the executive summaries and the essays. So good job, team. Good job on the hard work. Woohoo!
And on our ST side, the more exciting news, the new intake is done. So,
and beautiful.
And it is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Okay, so they are just finishing the last of the assemblies, programming, and electronics, and
they're basically programming, electronics, CAD fabrication. They're finishing their assemblies, and programming electronics should have, by the time this video is uploaded, as of right now it has not happened yet, but by the time this is uploaded, they should have been able to get their hands on the robot and started with wiring and programming and testing it out. So, and we're just about finished getting it ready for videos and stuff for submitting for competitions. So good job, team ST and IR. Congrats.
Yeah, I think that's all we have for you this episode.
So I guess this is Skyler and Tyler
signing off.